So it can be solved by reading first and last two sentences. Read everything only and only if you're confused in the two similar heading types. Other than that, if you're not confused, do not read everything. And that's how they check whether you do detailed reading or not. If matching heading question comes, solve it first with more attention and give max to max 20 minutes, not more than that. Words like however, whereas, or contrastingly are called transitional words like but. Okay. And usage is when we try to contradict in the second sentence. So there would be contrasting information written in a previous sentence. This is written to tell that the previous sentence is not important. This is done to tell you that the previous sentence is not at all important. Do not read it. Do not think that that's the main idea of the paragraph. So do not read that part that is about to come is important. Do not read the previous sentence part, but the part that is about to come is important. This way it will save you time and you will not read the previous sentence and read the coming sentence. So the more important one. Example, something something something. This however is not the case. So जब ये case ही नहीं है तो why you have given this? Just to confuse you so that you read the and this is done in the first two lines also. Mostly I have seen that they will write, for example, that studying for Ielts, it's not compulsory to study hard for Ielts as it is easy. This however is not the case. It means you have to study hard for Ielts because it is not that easy. It's not a rocket science exam, but it's not that easy as well. So this however is not the case. Some people do not read this and they miss out on the actual correct information. So this however are the sentence which are important and the previous sentences were contradicting to it. Now strategies. Read the options in the paragraphs. Read the paragraphs in chronological order. The paras are always connected. Solve one paragraph at a time. If you don't understand, move on to the next para. Don't waste your time. That is how you'll eliminate the wrong options as well and you would have the correct option by the end. Read first and last para, skim to the rest, try and understand the main idea. Focus on transition words like but and its synonyms. So however, what is given here is actually synonym for but. So what all synonyms of but is written, focus on those transition words and then finally finalize your answer. So there will be a global question followed by matching heading question. In matching heading question type, where we select heading per paragraph. So there is one heading for one para, for each para. But in global question, we only need to select the title of the whole passage. Only comes after matching heading type. Global questions comes after matching heading types. And here we take care about the whole passage. So there is some other kind also, that is matching information. Here you have to read the whole paragraph. Have to read the whole paragraph or else you would not be able to understand the options, correct option, and the options can be repeated as well. So if I talk about options in general, options are repeated. There can be multiple options and they are there to confuse you. So this about options you must be clear. Now let's solve some question type. Let's move on to the next type of questions. We are going to solve here the practice questions for matching heading type. Let's see what it has in detail for us. Matching headings. Okay, so my first thing that I will do is I would read the instruction that is universal. Okay, reading passage has 9 paragraphs. Can you imagine 9 paras? And without you knowing the band 9 tips, what would happen? I don't know. A to I. Choose the correct headings. Choose the correct heading for paragraphs A to E and G to I from the list of the headings below. Now they said 9 paragraphs. So this is what they're saying. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. So they said choose the correct headings. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For paras A to E and G to I. That means for paragraph F, they are not have any headings and F is not included in the task as we have studied in the previous lectures. Now, if we would have not read this instruction properly, we would have end up getting confused for paragraph F and lost our marks. But since we know all the tips and tricks, we studied the instruction. Write the correct number, that is from 1 to 11 in the boxes 1 to 8 in your answer sheet. Now can you imagine, these are 9 paragraphs minus 1, so these are total 8 paragraphs. That is why 8 correct answers would be there. But how many options are given? 9, 10, 11. 11 options are given. Meaning out of these 11 options, if I subtract 11 minus 8. It means that out of these 11 options, only 3 options are there which would be of no use, and only 8 are correct options. So 3 options here would be given for them to confuse you. Now look at the options first. We'll read the options. Option number 1 in the list of headings is a fresh and important long-term goal. So it's talking about a fresh and important long-term goal. Charging for roads and improving other transport methods. Charging for roads and improving other transport methods. Changes affecting the distance goods may be transported. Taking all steps necessary to change transport patterns. The environmental cost of road transport. The escalating cost of rail transport. The need to achieve transport rebalance. The rapid growth of private transport. Plans to develop major road networks. Restricting road use through charging policies alone. Transport trends in countries awaiting EU admission. We have read the headings. Okay, we don't have to ratify them. And we will start with our first para. First para is included in the task, that is para A. My trick said read the first two line and the last 2 lines. So I'm going to do exactly that. It is difficult to conceive of vigorous economic growth without an efficient transport system. It is difficult to conceive of vigorous economic growth without an efficient transport system. Although modern information technologies can reduce the demand for physical transport by facilitating telenetworking and teleservice, the requirement for transport continues to increase. And the last 2 lines is this. Actually, we'll end up reading the whole paragraph. The number of cars on European Union roads saw an increase of 3 million cars each year from 1990 to 2010, and in next decade you will see a further substantial increase in its fleet. So here it's talking about EU and the number of cars growth that EU saw in the last decade, that is from 1990 to 2010, and it will further see the same growth, not further, like a substantial increase in the next decade as well. And in the first 2 lines they were talking about transportation in general, that even though after modern information technologies can reduce demand for physical transport, even though you would not want to transport physically by with the help of teleworking and teleservices, even still there is requirement for transport and it continues to grow. So remaining 1 line is left. Let's just skim through it. There are 2 key factors behind this trend. For passenger transport, the determining factor is the spectacular growth in car use. So here we do not have to look for exact keywords. We do not have to match. Okay, so roads is given here and roads is given here. Okay, EU admission is given here. Here also EU is mentioned. No. What we have to do is we have to read the para. Because the para was so small, first 2 line, last 2 line, we end up reading the whole para. But for other cases, it won't be same. So, and you won't get this much time for explaining. Since I'm like explaining you all, I'm taking so much time. But max 20 minutes to solve such kind of questions. Now the thing is that what is the general idea of the para? What does the para speaks about? If I know this whole passage is about European transport system, but what this particular paragraph number 8 talks about? A fresh and important long-term goal? I don't think so. Charging for roads and improving other transport methods? No, it doesn't talk about charging at all. Changes affecting the distant goods may be transported? I don't think so. Taking all? No. This also environmental costs? No. The escalating cost of rail transport doesn't talk about it. The need to achieve transport rebalance, the rapid growth of private transport? Yes, we can say in a way because it talks about cars here. Plans to develop major road networks? No. Restricting road usage through changing policies alone, and transport trends in countries awaiting EU admission. So the most appropriate answer that I could find here is answer number 8, that is rapid use or rapid growth of private transport. Why do you think so? The reason being other options were not appropriate for this paragraph. They were not the general idea that this para talked about. But this para talked about what? The spectacular growth in car use. The number of cars on European Union roads saw an increase in 3 million cars each year. The usage of car was increased from this decade, and they predicted that in the next decade too it will also see a substantial increase. And that is how you know they're talking about the rapid growth of private transport. Let's talk about the next para. As far as goods transport is concerned, growth is due to a large extent to changes in European economy and its system of production. In the last 20 years, internal frontiers have been abolished. The EU has moved from a stock economy to a flow economy. Oh, there is no second line to the last para. No, there's no. Okay, this phenomena has been emphasized by the relocation of some industries, particularly those which are labor intensive, to reduce production costs, even though the production site is hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away from the final assembly of plant and away from users. So, they're talking about good transport is concerned, and the growth they saw was large extent to changes in European economy. Let's see what they're trying to say here. Charging for roads and improving other transportation method changes affecting the distance goods may be transported. So it's option number 3 here because it's the most appropriate one. They are talking here that if we talk about goods transport, just a second. If we talk about goods transport, this para talks first line they said good transport is concerned, growth is due to large extent to changes in European economy. जहाँ पर पहले is and in the it's a system of production. The last 20 years, it's as internal frontiers have in the last 20 years, as internal frontiers have been abolished, the EU have moved from a stock economy to a flow economy. This phenomena ये क्यों हुआ? Because of the relocation of some industries, especially of those which are labor intensive, that is to reduce the production cost. Even though the production site is hundreds and thousands of kilometers away, the final assembly or plant from the final assembly or plant or away from the user. So here it's talking about the distance. That is the general idea I'm getting from this para. So changes affecting the distances goods may be transported. Others, that is not, if you use your common sense, it's not making any sense to use any other heading type. Then the strong economic growth expected in countries which are candidates for entry to EU will also increase transport flows, in particular road haulage traffic. In 1998, some of these countries already exported more than twice their 1990 volumes and imported more than 5 times their 1990 volumes. Between 1990 and 1998, road haulage increased by 19.4%, while during the same period, rail haulage decreased by rail haulage decreased by 43.5%. Although this could benefit the enlarged EU, it is still on an average at a much higher level than in existing member states. So, let's skim through the remaining lines. And although many candidate countries inherited a transport system which encourages rail, the distribution between modes has tipped sharply in favor of road transport since 1990s. So it's talking about rail, the escalating cost of rail transport. Any other, I don't think it would suit the general idea of what this thing. Transport trends in countries awaiting EU admission. This also seems favorable. Let's see. So we are confused in these two, right? The escalating cost of rail transport and the transport trends in the countries awaiting EU admission. So what I'm going to do is quickly I'm going to read the next lines. The strong economic growth expected in countries which are candidates for entry in EU. Oh, entry to EU. Okay, we missed out on this language. The strong economic growth expected in countries which are candidates for entry to EU will also increase transport flows, especially particular in road haulage traffic. So they are talking about road also. They are talking about rail also. And they are talking about entry to EU. Now, did you understood? If I were to match this particular language, which I previously also underlined, to each para, I won't get that. But I matched the keyword from the passage to the statement because I was confused. And there I got my answer, that transport trends in countries awaiting EU admissions. What does it say? The strong economic growth expected is paraphrased as awaiting. Countries as countries which are candidates for entry in EU. And what are those trends related to road and railways? Then, so my option number, this for C is option number 11. Then, for D. However, a new imperative, sustainable development. Now we are talking about sustainable development. Let's look at the options here which talk about sustainable developments. Okay, let's read to the paragraph first. Oh, there's only one thing in one line in the paragraph, or what? Let me see. ECD. Okay, it's here. Okay. However, a new imperative sustainable development offers an opportunity. So it offers an opportunity. Okay, what kind of opportunity? For adopting EU's common transport policy. This objective agreed by the Gothenburg European Council has been achieved by integrating environmental considerations into community policies and shifting the balance between modes of transport lies at the heart of its strategy. The ambitious objective, okay, this seems like a keyword, can only be fully achieved by 2020, but proposed measures are nonetheless a first essential step towards sustainable transport system, which will ideally be in place in 30 years time, that is by 2040. So they are talking their goals regarding certain years. So what are they trying to say? A fresh and important long term goal. Self explanatory. Don't need to put a lot of efforts there. In 1998, energy consumption in the transport sector was to blame for 28% of emission of carbon dioxide. So energy consumption because of 28% emission of CO2, the leading greenhouse gas. According to the latest estimates, it is, if nothing is done to reverse traffic road trend, CO2 emission from transport can be expected to increase by around 50% to 1,113 billion tons by 2020, compared with 739 billion tons recorded in 1990. Once again, road transport is the main culprit, since it alone accounts for 84% of CO2 emissions attributable to transport using alternative fuels and improving energy for efficiency. Thus, both ecological necessity and a technological challenge. So, road, energy consumption, CO2. What are they talking about? Pollution, emission of CO2. Main culprit is the road transport. Which heading? Charging for roads and improving the transport methods. No, this is also not. The environmental cost of road transport. Okay. रेल ट्रांसपोर्ट तो बात ही नहीं कर रहे हैं, डेवलपमेंट की भी बात नहीं आ रही है, इसकी भी बात नहीं आ रही है. सो द आंसर टू दिस क्वेश्चन इज द इन्वायरमेंटल कॉस्ट ऑफ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट. व्हाट इज द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ road transport in our society? So the answer to this is fifth one. The answer to D was first one. The answer to C was obviously 11th one. For B it was third one. For this it was 8th one. Okay. Such a change cannot be achieved overnight, all the less so far over half a century. By contrast, deterioration in favor of roads. Okay. This has reached such a pitch that today rail freight services are facing marginalization with just 8% of market share, and with the international goods trains struggling along at an average speed 18 km per hour, three possible options have emerged. So now what you did, you read the F paragraph, which was not included in the task. You wasted your time because you forgot that it was not in the task. And when I reached this line, I came to know why. Because it doesn't have any question in itself. So first of all, let me mark this. There should be something. There should be done by our end something. From our end, we should do something so that we do not end up reading such paragraphs. So we will move on to G para. The first approach would consist of focusing on road transport solely through pricing. Road transport through pricing. But let's be sure and read the full para. This option would not be accomplished by complementary measures in other modes of transport. In short, it might curb the growth in road transport through better loading ratio of goods vehicles and occupancy rates of passenger vehicle expected as a result of the increase in the price of transport. However, the lack of measure available to revitalize the other modes of transport, it's also talking about the other modes of transport, would make it impossible for more sustainable modes of transport to take up the baton. So without a doubt, the answer is 2 for charging for roads and improving other transport methods. So the answer for this is 2. Without a doubt. So this is what happens when you read with concentration. When you have the text in your hand, you are able to concentrate even better. No, sorry. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, the answer for this is 10th one. because restricting road use through charging policies alone is what they are doing. The first approach would consist of focusing on road transport solely through pricing. So here only you have got your answer, because I didn't read this options, all the options correctly. My eyes. So this is also a learning point for you as well. They do not have. See, where did I get confused? In the terms of keywords, I thought that okay, road is written, so this might, no, this is not how you solve the questions. So for this paragraph G, the answer is 10th. Okay. The second approach also concentrates on road transport pricing, but is accompanied by measure to increase the efficiency of other modes of transport. Okay, here is where the second option would be suitable. And the quality of services, logistics, what they're trying to say in the last line, it could help achieve greater uncoupling than the first approach, but road transport would keep lion's share of the market and continue to concentrate on saturated arteries despite being the most polluting of the modes. It is therefore not enough to guarantee the necessary shift in the balance. So here they are talking about road transport as well as other modes of transport. So answer here would be answer number 2. For next answer, that is last para, the third approach they are talking about, which is not new, comprises a series of measures ranging from pricing to revitalizing alternative modes of transport and targeting investment in the trans-European network. This integrated approach would allow market shares of other modes to return to their 1998 levels and thus make a shift of balance. It is far more ambitious than it looks, bearing it in mind historical imbalance in favor of roads for the last 50 years, but would achieve a marked break in the link between road transport growth and economic growth without placing restrictions on the mobility of people and goods. What do you think? This paragraph resembles which heading the more? What is the essence of the paragraph? Taking all steps necessary to change transport patterns. Escalating cost of rail transport? No. The need to achieve transport rebalance can be stated. Plans to develop major road networks? No. And transport trends in the country awaiting EU admission. This was तो already done ना. Why have we not highlighted this? So last में 4 ऑप्शन बचने चाहिए. 1 2 3 4. Taking all steps necessary to change transport patterns. We were confused in which all to rebalance once we were confused, right? Let's see how it is. How it is saying that it is taking all steps necessary to change transport patterns. Let's see. Third approach, which is not new, comprises a series of measures ranging from pricing to revitalizing alternative modes of transport and targeting investment in trans-European network. This integrated approach would allow the market share of other modes to return to their 1998 levels and thus make a shift of balance. It is more ambitious than it looks, and it is a link between road transport growth and economic growth without placing restriction on mobility of people and goods. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to take all the steps necessary to change the transport patterns. So now you understood how these questions are solved. I have one more question to solve in matching heading types. It's a good question. It also includes global heading. Oh, one paragraph is remaining or what? No. I also we did. We did. This was the last paragraph. So answer is 4. So how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Total 8 paragraphs we have completed. So this is how it's solved. And like, share, subscribe for more videos. You would not get such tips and tricks anywhere else. So the least you could do is subscribe to my channel and turn on the post notification for other videos.